Hi, I'm Dave Hilowitz. Recently, somebody asked me how I organize my studio. The truth is, I don't have an overarching plan, but I do have this, a very organized closet. Everything I use on a daily basis, I try to keep out here, in front of me, and anything else I keep hidden in that closet. My closet system is pretty basic. It consists of 3 elements: metal shelves, stackable plastic containers, and a label maker. These metal shelves can be purchased in a ton of places. I think I got these at Target for like $60. The great thing about these is that they're modular, which means that if I decide I want to use them in another space, I can just split them apart into 2 or 3 other shelving units. One thing I make sure of when I'm buying shelves is that they fit the plastic containers I use. The goal for me is to be able to fit a few containers side by side and not have a ton of unused space left over on the sides. Obviously, they also have to be deep enough for the containers I'm using. Speaking of which, the next ingredient is plastic storage containers. Of course, in the world of stackable containers, you have 2 options: containers that have lids and containers that are open from the front. I personally prefer containers with lids. When I want to get at my stuff, I just pull it off the shelf and then I can really rummage through it. The ones I use are these Sterilite 6-quart containers. There's nothing particularly special about them. They're just long, translucent boxes that are about the size of a pair of shoes. Their most important feature is that they're stackable. I went with these because Sterilite was a brand I'd heard of and because they were super cheap, just 99 cents at Target. Unfortunately, they've been getting harder and harder to find. If I were suddenly not able to get a hold of these, I would just switch to another vendor without thinking twice. But they all have to match. So if I did do that, I'd have to switch all of my containers, and that would be a huge hassle. In short, if you do find a container you like, my advice would be to get a ton, because you never know when they're going to stop making them. The Sterilite seems to hold up fine if I have 3 containers stacked, but as a general rule, I don't stack more than 2, because it becomes a pain to get at the bottom container. The final piece of this puzzle is the label maker. I use an Epson LW300. I used to use masking tape and label all my containers by hand, but I hate my handwriting to the point where it would actually bum me out to look at my shelves. I bought this thing about 15 years ago, and I haven't looked back. It wasn't that expensive, but at the time it still felt like a huge extravagance. What did I want with a hyper-specific device whose only purpose was to make labels? Plus, I would need to buy tape refills, and I assumed those would be expensive. In short, I had no idea how happy it would make me to have everything neatly labeled. I would buy another one of these in a heartbeat. Unfortunately, Epson discontinued its consumer label makers a couple of years ago, so I'd have to go with another brand, although they all look pretty much the same. I only go through about 1 roll of label tape a year, so it's not like it's an expensive habit or anything. I make 3 labels for each box, one for the top, front, and side of each box. For consistency, the side label is always on the right side. Okay, so that's how I set the boxes up. But what actually goes inside? How do I know that something should get its own box? As a general rule, anything or type of thing that I have more than 2 of should have its own box. For cables, that's easy. USB cables all go in one box. Guitar patch cables all go in one box. But there are some weird categories as well. Like apparently I have enough tiny synths that I have a box for them. For the most part, this system works really well, but there are some struggles. First, sometimes boxes overflow their contents. Like right now, I have more USB cables than can fit in one box. Today, I'm going to fix that by getting more specific. I'm going to make a new box. And in the new box, I'm going to put all of the USB cables that have Type B connectors. You know, the ones that look like this. This is mostly how I handle this kind of situation. When boxes become too crowded, I try to come up with new, more specific categories. Of course, this system only works for things that actually can fit in a box. As you can see up top, I have a whole set of containers that are a bit wider and deeper. I put my unused launch pads in one, my extra photo gear in the other. It's not perfect because these are different dimensions from the main containers I'm using. By the way, Sterilite does actually make larger containers, and I've got a whole set of them in the basement. But sadly, the dimensions of those containers are not compatible with the sizing of the smaller containers. In other words, they don't fit neatly on the same shelf. If I had it to do over, I might go with these boxes from the Container Store. They're a bit pricier than the ones I'm using, but at first glance, it looks like 2 of their shoebox size boxes fit right on top of the sweater box. Very appealing. Okay, that's it for the closet. The only other organizational stuff I use in the studio are these. Stray connectors go in these mesh pouches. The pouches have these nice loops at the end, which means you can connect them together with a keyring. Where possible, I use Velcro ties to hold cables together, although I'll admit I'm not as good about wrapping cables as I should be. Also, I use these 6-inch extension cords to plug in anything that has a power adapter. I bought like 24 of them in bulk a long time ago. In this way, I don't crowd my surge protectors, and I never have to worry about managing the real estate on my power strips, which we all know can be a real hassle. Okay, I think that's it. I would love to hear your studio organizational tools. How are you storing your cables? How are you storing your adapters? How do you plug stuff into your gear? I love organizing my space. Whenever I'm feeling bummed out or like I don't really want to work on music, I clean up my studio, I organize things, and I know that when I'm done, I'll be super motivated and really want to get back to work. If you enjoyed this video, it'd be great if you could hit like, and if you haven't done so already, now is a great time to subscribe. I've got a bunch of videos on the way. See you next time.